It's been a year since the Boeing 737 MAX restarted commercial flying, with a majority of the regulators having recertified the type. Still, China remains a major market where the MAX has not yet been recertified, but Boeing is optimistic the ban should be lifted soon. The 737 MAX currently flying are the MAX 8 and the MAX 9 variants. The smaller MAX 7 is expected to start flying with Southwest from later this year. The larger MAX 10, or the largest variant of the MAX family, is the aircraft, which could give Boeing a very big headache, and this video focuses on that. To understand what is going on, we have to rewind to when Boeing started working on the 737 MAX project. Boeing forced itself into upgrading the 737, instead of developing an all-new aircraft. The 737 entered service in 1968, and its overall design and flight controls haven't really kept up with modern technologies. Rival Airbus was winning a lot of orders with their modern A320, and the NEO program announcement meant Airbus had a far superior product than the 737 NG. To quickly address this competition, Boeing took the route of modifying the 737, instead of building a new airplane from scratch. While the engines of the 737 MAX are state-of-the-art, the cockpit design, and more importantly, the flight crew alerting system was carried over from the older 737. As the Seattle Times reported, in 2014, when Boeing started work on the MAX, it convinced the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, to relax the safety standards for the 737 MAX related to cockpit alerts that would warn pilots if something went wrong during flight. Boeing argued that an upgrade to the alerting systems, or cockpit design of the 737, would require significant investments and resources. Boeing had also promised the airlines that ordered the MAX that simulator training would not be required for their existing 737 pilots to fly the MAX. This meant the airline would save on resources too, as there are costs involved in crew training and qualification. The 737 MAX got the following exemptions to the flight crew alerting system, which otherwise is a part of a modern, commercial jet. By the way, if you are liking the video so far, a subscription to the channel will certainly help in us reaching a wider audience. Coming back to the 737, Boeing told the FAA that the cost of fully complying with crew alerting regulations would cost around $10 billion, which would make the MAX a less attractive aircraft for airlines. The FAA accepted and granted Boeing the exemption. Fast forward to 2020, and investigators noted that the outdated alerting system of the 737 MAX played a part in the horrific crashes, which claimed 346 people. The pilots of these fateful flights struggled to understand the myriad warnings in the cockpit, especially in a high workload situation just after getting airborne. One of the exemptions the MAX received relates to the suppression of erroneous attention-getting alerts, which could distract the crew from other issues. In the case of the 737 MAX, this is the stick shaker, which vibrated the control column on both MAX crashes. Due to the faulty angle of attack sensor, the stick shaker was activated and was giving false information to the pilots that their aircraft was nearing a stall. There was no way to cancel this alert as well. On the Ethiopian Airlines crash especially, the pilots received multiple warnings besides the stick shaker. They heard the oral alert, "Don't sink," which warns pilots that the aircraft is too close to the ground, accompanied by a clacker, warning pilots that they were overspeeding. Needless to say, lawmakers were aghast that Boeing was essentially pushing a decades-old product, with little oversight from the FAA. So, in 2020, the Congress passed a legislation which saw bipartisan approval. The legislation makes sweeping changes on how the FAA approves new commercial aircraft and gives the agency more authority in decision-making. Called the Aircraft Certification, Safety, and Accountability Act, the legislation mandates that any airplane certified 2 years after its enactment must have a state-of-the-art crew alerting system. Some of the features of a modern crew alerting system include a centralized cockpit warning system, which helps pilots prioritize and differentiate warnings and cautions, and also allows them to cancel out erroneous warnings. A modern alerting system, like the one seen on Airbus aircraft called ECAM, or Electronic Centralized Aircraft Monitor, prioritizes alerts so that pilots first respond to the most critical failure. Boeing's equivalent of the ECAM is called ICAS, or Engine Indicating and Crew Alerting System, and it is fitted to modern Boeing aircraft, like the 787 and 777. The 737 is the only Boeing jet that currently does not feature ICAS, and nor does it have a modern crew alerting system. Hence, if the 737 MAX 10 is not certified by the end of this year, technically, Boeing would have to design a crew alerting system specific for the aircraft type, which the airplane maker is shying away from. There are a few reasons to this. Firstly, this would mean the 737 MAX 10 is different from other MAX variants, and Boeing thinks it would cause difficulties for pilots in airlines, which fly a mixed variety of the 737. Secondly, Boeing says this will be an expensive upgrade, and would most certainly require pilots to undergo simulator training, which would make the aircraft type less appealing for airlines. At present, if there is a malfunction in the 737, the pilot first sees a master caution alert light, with a text relating to the system of the aircraft where the fault is detected. The pilot then needs to scan the overhead panel and troubleshoot the issue with the QRH, or the Quick Reference Handbook. In comparison, the ICAS, or the ECAM, give a detailed description of the failure, and prompt the pilot to perform actions, mostly without the need of referencing any manuals. One of the reasons regulators are pushing for better alerting systems is because of the varying experience levels of each individual. In the United States, for example, pilots flying an aircraft like the 737 typically have over 1,500 hours of experience and may be able to cope with a high workload scenario. In some countries, the co-pilot requirements are as low as 200 hours, and these pilots could find it challenging to manage failures while flying the aircraft. According to reports, Boeing is lobbying to try and get an exemption for the MAX 10, as it looks to miss the December 31st deadline to get the aircraft certified. Boeing may ask the Congress to exempt the MAX 10, and as per reports, the final word would likely come from the FAA, if the MAX 10 should indeed be exempted. Compared to the other MAX variants, the 737 MAX 10 will see the additional fitment of an upgraded angle of attack sensor, offering triple redundancy as compared to double redundancy of the other MAX variants. The angle of attack sensor was a contributing part in the 2 MAX crashes. Additionally, pilots of the MAX 10 will also get the option of silencing the stick shaker. Boeing has received orders from 12 airlines for a total of 670 MAX 10 aircraft. The MAX 10 will have a maximum range of 3,300 nautical miles, and would carry up to 230 passengers in a single-class configuration. What are your thoughts about a new alerting system for the 737? Do you think Boeing should finally step up and design a better system, given the MAX aircraft will end up flying at least for the next couple of decades? Let us know in the comments below, and a subscription from you will certainly help the channel grow further. Thank you for watching this video.